Hi everyone, welcome back to Easy Recaps. Today I will show you an animation and action film from 2021 titled The Drowned Giant. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. In The Drowned Giant, a scientist named Steven visits a beach where the body of a giant has washed up. It's obvious that it's a corpse, but the townspeople's fascination with the giant offers it a lively feel. Steven watches from a distance as more people congregate to glimpse the strange phenomenon. Even as Steven conveys the profound, philosophical nature of this giant's arrival, the people regard the corpse as a tool for their amusement. The public's fascination with the gargantuan fades away as the days pass. Steven gathers the courage to set foot on the giant's rotting cadaver at this point. He observes how the youthful body of the giant has bowed down to the rough test of time. The sea, the elements, the seasons, and the climate as a whole have all had an impact on it. Steven discovers a sense of decency in the giant as the corpse decays. The giant's body is quickly dismembered, and no trace of human remains. After a while, the giant's body parts, mostly bones, start to re-emerge around town. Steven regards this as somewhat derogatory but accepts it as the natural conclusion of life. The public's memory of the giant's glory has faded, leaving only an echo of it. He also laments humanity's exploitative nature. The episode ends with Steven wondering what it must be like to see the giant rise from the dead. Steven narrates the story, which is a series of epiphanies and interpretations the researcher gains while documenting the giant's corpse. He senses a kind of symbolic life inside this dead body as he discusses the corpse's allure as a form of entertainment for the people. As a result, climbing atop the corpse can be interpreted as Steven facing his mortality. Within the context of the situation, the giant symbolizes a variety of things. The giant is an analogy for human arrogance. In metaphorical terms, his size and stature represent a person's success, popularity, achievements, or popularity. The fanfare lavished on the giant's corpse is reminiscent of how a famous person's death would be handled in the reality. Steven's observations about nature's scientific effects on the corpse give the impression that death may not have a hidden significance. Life is what gives death meaning, and an individual can live past death through their memories and legacy, which are represented by the giant's body parts on display throughout town. Finally, the giant is used to express how people view sea creatures as well as other large sea creatures that wash ashore. Their deaths are barely documented, and they are treated in the same way as the giant's body parts. Next, I'll go over the Ice Age film. At the beginning of the film, a couple is depicted. They have been moved to a new residence. Rogue is then seen bringing some items into his home, while his wife Gail is also seen arranging the items. In the new apartment, Gail finds an ancient refrigerator. This was left in this residence by the landlord. Gail is concerned about the refrigerator. There's something fantastic about vintage technologies. Gail says she intends to lay the new fridge on it while teasing, "Yes, this ugly motor is on it." Rouge, on the other hand, couldn't afford a new refrigerator. Gail dismisses her husband's brilliance. They think to themselves as they leave this problem to enjoy the wine. They were exhausted from shifting. Rogue discovers the fridge coated in ice pieces as he goes to fetch some ice. He carefully removes the ice from the freezer and drops it into his glass. They sit around the table and toast the happiness of their home. He notices a shape in the liquid after taking a sip of it. He shows Gail the ice cube and says, "Are you seeing anything in it?" When he discovers it's an animal, he can't believe his eyes. Gail pulls out the magnifying lens right away. They observe a little creature encased in the ice. After seeing the creature, they were surprised and perplexed. It was so little that they didn't realize it was hunting until they noticed spears in its body. They were even more surprised after seeing it. Gail immediately removes all of the ice cubes from the refrigerator. From inside the fridge, it is discovered that a middle-aged civilization is working. Time was passing quickly in the fridge. 1 second equals 1 year in the fridge. The husband and wife were astonished after they saw this. They were perplexed as to how this was possible. The inhabitants were also staring at them. Even when they were small, they seemed to be mistaken for giants. Even so, they have no issue with them. Rogue eventually buries the creature in his house's plant. Gale makes fun of the small creature they discover in the ice cube. Trying to open the fridge, they realize the city has changed into the industrial era from the middle in such a short time as they were away from the fridge for only a short time. However, centuries did pass in the city. This city produced massive structures. Rogue was saddened by all of this, missing the time they spent together at the start. Do they regard them as God? Meanwhile, they notice 2 construction workers conversing in the freezer. "We see those insane giants daily," they said. "We've had enough of seeing broccoli in Gale's teeth." While witnessing the industrial community's transformation into a modern community, the buildings there were transformed into the superstructure, and with it, they witnessed the small flying. They were mistaken for planes by Rogue, but now they are witnessing the passing of time. Rogue was taken aback and wondered what will happen after this modern era if it is similar to ours. Meanwhile, they notice a lightning strike nearby. "What is it?" Rogue exclaims as he moves closer to inspect it. Then, with a hard jerk, he falls into the distance. Gale approaches him to assist him. She notices his scorched face. They realize it's a launcher. When they got close to it, the war was already over. They shut the freezer door so as not to escalate the conflict. They then order pizza and sit down to eat. They haven't seen the freezer in nearly an hour. Is the war really over? Rogue suggests that we open the fridge again. They were terrified this time. They were terrified of everything being destroyed. They are taken aback when they open the refrigerator. The war is already over, and the peasants have reclaimed their land. They notice the small flying cars as well. In the city, they glisten like pearls. They make a comparison to their world. It was a futuristic world with sky-talking buildings. The city then transforms into a pyramid. It was linked to several lines. Rogue and Gale suspected everybody in the pyramid lived there. The pyramid structure begins to soak the entire city, and it explodes while transforming into a massive energy wall. As a result, the silver sparks spread throughout their entire kitchen. They were fixated on it. They saw it as a part of the fantasy world. The sparks appeared to be fireflies. All of this, in reality, shows how the world has been removed. They hug as Rogue turns off the fridge. In just a few hours, they saw humanity's sketch and observed the past, future, and present. The following morning, the couple resumes their normal lives. They're still pondering yesterday's events. They view the freezer again in anticipation when the small humans return, but now they're eating dinosaurs' meat. This movie also ends with a photograph of this couple. They were preoccupied once more with seeing the wildlife. This film depicts the world's beginning, evolution, and end. The movie ends with the presence of life and Powerball signifying the end of humanity. Thank you for watching.